Our Foreign Minister Bob Carr has met the UN's Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon in New York, from where he joins us now. Mr Carr, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Michael.
You spent the day in New York at the United Nations. What's your assessment on whether this struggling peace plan will in fact work?
Well, it's very sobering. There's no evidence of progress yet. Don't forget that it was on April 1 that Joint Special Envoy Kofi Annan was assured by the Syrian government that three things would happen. There'd be a cessation of troop movements in populated areas. Second, there'd be no use of heavy weapons in population centres. And third, there'd be the start of a pullback of military concentrations in and around population centres. Well, that deadline has come and gone, and those things haven't happened. In my discussions today, I think I can describe the tone as being very sobering. And later on in the week, there'll be further UN discussions that I hope might represent substantially added pressure on the Syrian government.
From many people's perspectives, the Assad regime is simply thumbing its nose at the international community. What more can the UN do in those consultations later in the week to enforce change in that country?
Well, the UN Secretary-General told me a couple of hours ago that he would be seeing the Security Council heard a full report on progress to date on Thursday. There are two options available. One would be a resolution of the Security Council. The other would be a presidential statement from the Security Council. We would hope that would represent additional pressure, and the Syrian government itself would see an advantage to itself from changing course in acknowledgement of a strong position. I would hope a stronger position than up till now being taken by the world community.
And do you have any realistic hope that that strong position will include the likes of Russia and China on the Security Council?
I'm not in a position to answer that question, and I think the Secretary-General himself would be cautious. Everyone's aware in the UN of Australia's constructive part in this, and today I was able to announce, and the Secretary-General welcomed it, $2 million in Australian aid for immediate humanitarian assistance for some of those wretched people displaced from their homes, traumatised by the experience of civil war, and an additional $3 million made available for food assistance. Australia once again is being what the Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon referred to in his discussions today as an exemplary UN member, a good global citizen.
Australia has already imposed a number of sanctions on the Syrian regime. Is the government prepared to go further and impose further sanctions?
Well, we're prepared to discuss that with our partners. The sanctions we've applied to date are sanctions directed at leading members of the government, in fact against 106 individuals and 28 entities. They represent travel restrictions and restrictions on financial transactions. They're sanctions that don't hurt the suffering people of Syria, but make clear our emphatic disapproval of this government's war against its own people, as described by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Senator Carr, if the government is so repulsed at what's going on in Syria, why not call in Syria's ambassador to Australia and eject him from the country? Purely a symbolic move, undoubtedly, but something that will ring true to a lot of people. I'm
not ruling it out, but we will measure our responses. Certainly at this stage, we would like to keep alive the hope of the government of Syria shifting its position.
So the expulsion of the Syrian ambassador is a live possibility?
I'm not ruling it out. I'd simply say at this stage we are hoping that world pressure on the government of President Assad will lead to a change in its behaviour.